All right, Jeff. Hey, how's it going, man? Looks like you're in the lab. What you got cooking today?
Oh man, cooking some new stuff up, man. I guess people have to wait to find out about it on allamericansubs.com.
Oh, that's where it will go. So stay tuned. That's allamericansubs.com. ALLAMERICANSUPPS.com.
There
Anyway,
you go.
uh, it'd be interesting to talk today because last week we covered about Kre-Alkalyn, and we know it's the pH correct creatine monohydrate. And actually, it's funny, a question came up after that where people are talking about pH. And I really don't think people understand what that is. We all, in high school or even in grade school chemistry, you talk about pH, but I don't think people really know what that is, why it's important, and like
Yep.
why does it even matter, especially for a supplement like creatine. So I
You
thought,
know,
let's dive right
yeah,
in. We're live.
I
Let's
thought it'd
talk
be
about it.
yeah, I thought it'd be a good subject. I mean, I think we all have had some experience in, high school, maybe junior high chemistry, biology, where you heard the word pH, but it's the importance of everything, including life. Our blood needs to be maintained at a certain pH in order for us to live. So again, it's really important. But one of the things people always try to figure out is what is pH? What does it stand for? And funny enough, it stands for the power of the hydrogen ion. Kind of like that.
Yeah, or potential. And and I know up and down the scale, every time you move one, it's tenfold.
Yep.
So if you went
Well,
from
it
like
is.
pH 6 to 4, 4 to 6, that's 100-fold.
Yeah, basically the pH of a solution is the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration. If you
Right.
want the chemical, it's pH equals log H plus. Anyhow, too much chemistry.
That hurts my head.
Yeah, 1 times 10 to the minus 7th molar,
Yeah,
in a nuclear solution. But the pH scale, basically, when we talk about pH in food or chemistry, we typically go from 0 to 14 or 15. That is the typical range. And different things happen at different pHs. Different foods are different pHs. And one of the things that kind of prompt this is, as you said, last week, our show was about really busting the myth of these old studies that have lingered out there. We gave facts that they were false. And of course, people then comment, and you always get these armchair quarterbacks who, folks, little advice, don't comment on something that you don't know what you're talking about. It kind of makes you look dumb. Keep your opinions to yourself. Brian and I, we always give facts. We don't give opinions. Where can you get opinions, Brian? Watch the news, right?
Or anywhere. Turn on CNN, Fox, whatever, you're going to get a myriad of them instead of actual news.
What do they call those guys? Analysts?
Yeah, if you want to call them that. I have some other names for them, but we'll keep this clean.
Yeah. So anyhow, this gentleman went on to comment that, oh, okay, well, so the studies are fake, but, you can't, it's dangerous for Kre-Alkalyn to be pH 14. You can't eat pH 14. You guys don't know what you're talking about. So again, stupid comment, nothing what you're talking about. But let's address that. Again, if it were put in a question, which we've had that question over the years, hey, how can somebody eat something pH 14? I thought that something that basic would be dangerous. So let's start at the middle of the scale, pH 7, that's neutral. Right. Typically water is neutral. Or used to be neutral. Now that, we put chlorine and we put all these things, water is actually slightly acidic to keep bacteria and stuff from growing. Correct. So as we lower the pH scale, as the number decreases, it becomes more acidic. So my answer to that question, I basically say hydrochloric acid, which is one of the nastiest acids we use here in a lot of chemical synthesis, it will burn right through your skin, put a hole through your hand. It eats through a lot of stuff. It's pH 3.1. Now, you could not drink that. You would die instantaneously. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that. But orange juice is pH 3.0. So how can you drink a pH 3.0? Well, it depends on, is it food grade science or is it chemistry? And the same thing, if we go up the scale, as we go above 7 and the number increases, we call that basic. And when you get to caustic chemicals that are pH, 12, 13, 14, eat right through your skin. But how can you then eat Kre-Alkalyn that's pH 14? Again, food grade chemistry. There are food grade substances that we can raise or lower the pH that are completely safe. But at the same token, there are chemicals that we would use in chemical manufacturing that will burn right through metal that you would never want to ingest.
Right. Well, and similarly, I guess another way to look at it is you think of like a soda, like a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
That's extremely acidic.
Yep.
But actual chemical and a true acid chemical, not food, would be absolutely detrimental, blow your stomach out. and if you put it on your skin, it'd burn it.
Yeah, and look at a soda, Coke or Pepsi. They use phosphoric acid. Now, there's two types of phosphoric acid. The food grade phosphoric acid, you wouldn't want to drink it straight. It would burn your throat. But when we put it into a solution to lower the pH, we're not using very much.
Right.
But there is a phosphoric acid that, again, will eat right through metal. It's nasty, but that's that's a pure reagent grade phosphoric acid. Same thing with, hydrochloric acid. There are different levels and different grades and different strengths. But mostly what we use in the food industry or the supplement industry to lower the pH is, citric acids and malic acids. And again, if you were just to eat that stuff raw and pure, it would burn yourself. But remember, what are those sour gummies? The reason why they're sour is they roll them in citric acid. Now that's a powder, so it's not like a pure acid. It's made to enhance tartness, which again enhances flavor systems. Now, typically we don't use basic technology in foods because we need to lower pHs in order for all these preservatives to work. So most all food items are a lower pH, below 7. So we really created this food grade technology when we developed Kre-Alkalyn. Again, it happens during the synthesis process where we're able to elevate that pH. So there really isn't a whole lot of food grade stuff. Now, certain minerals are, pH 8 max. So again, if you're going to have, a chelated magnesium, again, slightly higher pH. A citrated magnesium is going to be a lower pH. A carbonate or phosphate magnesium is going to be a slightly alkaline pH. So again, there are ways of manipulating things using different types of technology. But again, that's food science, pretty known in the food and supplement industry.
Yeah. Well, if you go full circle back to Kre-Alkalyn, which obviously we've been talking about off and on here, is so to get to that level of pH, the key to that is the patent. And how little of these compounds or ingredients you're using to achieve that still no one has they've never been able to figure it out. And they're very confused that how can this basically register at 99.9% pure creatine monohydrate and still have that buffering effect?
Well, and when we started synthesizing creatine monohydrate here in Billings back in the mid 90s, one of the catalysts was hydrochloric acid. So we were lowering the pH because that's what you would do to make creatine monohydrate. Creatine monohydrate ends up coming out, 6.2. Right. HCl is going to be much lower. That's why that isn't very stable because, again, you're reacting it with hydrochloric acid, going to bring the pH down. Well, I started experimenting with different catalysts, different intermediates, and we were actually raising the pH, and I was getting a pure product, but the pH was too high. So I then had to adjust the pH in the reactor to get it down. So when I discovered later on about the whole instability of creatine to creatinine, I remembered that I had all these chemical processes where I was actually raising the pH in the reactor, and we just went back to that technology, and that's what led to commercially available Kre-Alkalyn. But when you look at the patents, a lot of people always say, well, it's just baking soda. 20 years ago, you could be very vague on patents. You just had to give one way of doing it. And of course, baking soda pH 8, that'll raise the pH of anything that you mix it with. But you can't make baking soda higher than pH 8 in its pure form. And go try to mix a little bit of baking soda in some water. You'll throw up in, probably less than a minute. I mean, it's nasty. So again, it isn't, adding a whole bunch of stuff like we do to foods. This is, again, during the reaction process, we're able to elevate that pH. This is a chemical. So what we're using in that process, you could never eat. You can't eat sarcosine, would kill you. You can't eat cyanamide, will kill you.
Yeah.
But when you know what you're doing on a chemistry level, you take nasty things, you react them, you precipitate crystals, and there you go. You got Kre-Alkalyn, and all of a sudden the pH is elevated.
Right. Well, and I think the other point people might miss when we talk about like the HCl, the more acidic creatines, is all creatine starts its life as creatine monohydrate. And you're actually doing a secondary reaction with hydrochloric. When you're putting those together, you're causing a reaction, which actually creates a new compound, and which is why it's not pure. Whereas if you figure out going the other way with what we do, we're not going to name all the specifics, but you can get an almost pure product that's still creatine monohydrate, but has the added buffering.
Exactly.
Into it. And that's where people kind of lose it, and they think, no, I use this other stuff. Well, you don't know the purity of it because it's not.
No, HCl is usually 30% max creatine. The rest is hydrochloric acid. It's a salt. And again, we know in food science that you lower the pH, things go in the solution better. And that's why they did it for creatine HCl, was to basically say, oh, if we put 50 grams in 8 ounces of water or 100 grams, it's going to be soluble. Well, duh. No kidding, man. I can make just about anything soluble if I lower the pH. That's how we make ready to drinks. Carbonated RTDs are completely soluble, where when you mix the powder up yourself, there's going to be some settling out. Well, what's the difference is the pH is much lower in those RTDs than they are in the powder, just because we have to control that to keep it soluble and to keep microbes and such from growing,
Right. I'm on live and getting calls.
So,
anyway,
really, that's the whole gist of pH. I mean, it's very important in foods for taste, for preservatives. Kre-Alkalyn, obviously, very important for stability. But this is all science. This is all chemistry. It's complex stuff. It isn't as easy as what a lot of times people think. Or, again, like the guy saying, oh, you're killing people. You can't eat a pH 14. That would, you die. You're lying.
Yeah. That's stuff we've heard over and over and over the years. It doesn't seem like it's as much, but there's always, like you said, that new guy that feels like they're the first person to find that stupid study or some other smoking gun that's going to take this whole thing down and destroy Kre-Alkalyn for whatever reason. They feel like they're doing, I don't know, maybe they feel like they're doing something good, but anyway, same old.
Do you remember, people drink sodas all the time and it doesn't kill you, but I saw, and I actually did it too, where you'll take a bolt and you'll just soak it in Pepsi or Coke.
Yeah, or a penny.
A penny. I mean, after 30 or 60 days, it'll actually dissolve the whole thing. I mean, but it takes a long time for that to happen. Now, I don't know what happens to your inside when you drink it, 10 Cokes a day. I mean,
there are people that do it.
But, but again, it's not going to kill you, drinking some. So.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess if anyone else has any questions or needs some kind of clarification, if you didn't, you can always reach out, comment on this, or email Dr. Jeff. Give me your email, I guess, like you always do.
Yeah, it's drj, Dr. J at allamph.com. And, again, since we've been sort of talking about creatine in the last couple of weeks, if you want one of my books on creatine, I'll send you one absolutely free and give you a little education just about creatine and just about anything else. I think I got about 30 books out there. So you'll have to do some research if you want to find one that you might want.
Yeah. Well, and if you go to allamericansubs.com, there's a lot of them on there. Download their free digital download. So there you go.
There you go. All right, cool.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and sign this off and let everybody get back to whatever they're doing, and we'll catch up next time.